What's going on, everybody, and welcome into Hog Hoops Live. Curtis Wilkerson here, joined as always by my right-hand man, Andrew L-Ellis over at HawgSports.com. It is December 7th. Arkansas has won back-to-back basketball games, but it's staring down a huge opportunity this weekend. We're going to preview Saturday's matchup with Oklahoma. We're going to talk about these darn net rankings that's got everybody all razzled up. And we're going to really dive into some of the things that this team can clean up a little bit to really get the ball rolling and get the season back on track. Fun show today. We're really looking forward to it. No more time to waste. Let's get started. All right, before we do get rolling, I do want to remind everyone, if you got questions or comments, please throw those into the chat. We'll get to them at the end of the show here. Hey, me and Andrew, we've decided that we're going to go break some bread somewhere tonight. We're going to watch some sports here in Fayetteville. If you've got recommendations, throw those in there too. We're open to anything. We like to eat. Monday, Arkansas beat Ferman 97-83. I don't want to spend too much time on this game because honestly, it was it was a few days ago now, and it was just kind of a ho-hum, run of the mill type of win for Arkansas. So let's go through this fairly quickly, Andrew. Let's do a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, and then let's move on. I'll let you go from a player-specific standpoint. Maybe I'll take the team angle. So player-wise, give me your good, give me your not so good. What do you got?
Well, ironically, I got to start with the good in terms of Trevin Brazile, who really, I thought, in the second half started to find a groove a little bit, and then he, rolls his ankle, and now we're not sure if he's even going to play against Oklahoma. I really liked the work of Devo Davis. I thought he played really well. I thought it was we're starting to see Devo round into form almost. He's still not as ball dominant on offense as he might be in the future. And as a shooter, I think there's definitely some room for growth there. But in terms of just being an adult and making things happen and, being a little bit of a semi-point guard at times, especially with L-Ellis kind of in and out of the lineup here lately. I like what Devo did the other night. Layden Blocker had some good moments as well. I thought overall Arkansas's ball movement was just awesome. I think offensively, you can just go down the line and find your positives. Chandler Lawson, another huge game for the Claw. I thought it's been really fun. And Caleb Battle, continues to be exactly who we expect him to be. He's the guy that you can clear out everything. I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about what's going on in the game. When Caleb Battle has the ball late in the game, we just expect good things to happen. And he made a lot of that happen. I think it was 20 points in the second half after only playing 7 in the first. So plenty of positives, especially from an offensive standpoint. And we'll dive into it a little bit more, but still a lot of concerning developments for this team defensively, especially. I think with a game like this Ferman one, you're probably fooling yourself if you're trying to make too many big picture proclamations based off of it. But I do think we're at a point where we're learning a good bit about this team. And I thought that the Ferman game gave us a nice little microcosm of some of the positive developments that we've been seeing and some of the negative ones that, we'll talk about it later, but they're going to have to clean up a lot of these in specific areas heading into this Oklahoma game. But ultimately, I thought it was Arkansas took care of business. They technically covered the spread, which was huge. But I don't think there's too much to make of it. And I think Musselman said as much in terms of, they play a little bit different in certain games. We don't really know how this team's going to show up. It wasn't a flawless performance against Ferman, but they did what they needed to do. And like you said, we don't need to spend too much time talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think from a team standpoint, looking at it, the good was clearly the offense, right? Arkansas shot 60.7% from the field. They made 8 more threes. They shot 42% from deep, 21 assists in the game. That's a really good number when it comes to the ball movement. I don't remember what the turnovers were. I think it was like 11, but they really didn't have many down the stretch of the game. So, some good stuff there. Defensively, hey, 10 more block shots. Arkansas is 5th in the country right now in block percentage. Man, that's good, especially, earlier in the year when we were talking about, the physicality, the rim protection, all those things. Well, they might still lack a little bit in those areas, but man, they're long and they're athletic and they can block some shots, and that stuff matters. So the bad, the crowd, sorry. Man, Arkansas fans really showed up and showed out for that Duke game. It was incredible. Boy, that place wasn't even half full for this last game against Ferman. And look, I get it. It's not the sexiest matchup out there. But man, oh man, I haven't seen a crowd that small in Bud Walton Arena since the COVID years. I was kind of surprised that it didn't fill in more than it did. And, kind of looking ahead at some of the home games, you're like, man, the pre-Christmas with Abilene Christian, the post-Christmas with UNC Wilmington. Those are some of those dangerous mid-major teams, man. And the students are going to be gone. Like, hopefully the crowd kind of picks it up a little bit, because they need some of that support. When they've got the energy, man, they play so much better. You'd like to be able to kind of create your own, but I mean, it's easier said than done. So 3-point defense. Yeah, dude. I mean, they gave up a dozen threes in that game. I think the culprit is the on-ball defense. Like, if you're getting blown by, the defense collapses, it's kickouts, it's rhythm threes. That's something they really have to clean up. They struggled with that matchup against that Alex Williams kid. He looked like a defensive end, man. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. The dude was a tank, and Trevin Brazil had a really hard time guarding him on that pick and pop. He was stroking threes. They put Tremont Mark on him. He's just too big and strong. And so that was a little bit of a mismatch problem. Whatever. They gave up 83 points to a sub 500 mid-major team without its leading scorer. That's not ideal. So a lot of good, definitely some things for him to clean up. Yeah, it's about what I think you would expect a month into the season, right?
Well, Curtis, I wanted to mention, we didn't really talk about this after the game, but of all the people that didn't know the Alex Williams breakout was coming, there were a few guys, me, you, and Scotty, sitting on that front row that he caught our attention pregame. I forget the kid's name. What's their guard? Is it Marcus Noel or something like that? Like, what's that guard that they had that didn't play?
Marcus Foster. Yeah.
Marcus Foster. Yes. Well, we were looking for him pregame because we were kind of wondering, hey, is he going to play or whatever? And we saw this humongous guy dribbling, and we were like, is that him? They have similar hair. And then we were scanning the roster trying to find the name, and we saw Alex Williams. We saw he was 6'5", like 245 or something like that. We were like, that's who that is. But he caught our attention pregame as we were trying to locate the lead guard. We found that guy, and we are like, I don't know who that is, but he's humongous. Good Lord. And man, that defensive end, like you said, he was out there just stroking threes. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that concerns me with the performance overall, though, Curtis, is like, we talk about it all the time. Like, Arkansas is so good at game planning, and Musselman has kind of made a living over his career of taking away what you do best and kind of forcing you to beat him in different areas. Like, if you have a star guard that's averaging 20 a game, usually Musselman's going to do what he can to take that guy out. And I'm a little concerned that this Arkansas team doesn't seem to really have, they show up when they need to have big matchups, but like, we came into this game knowing that Ferman shoots a ton of threes. They average 28 a game coming into the game, or 28 attempts a game coming into it. They, we knew this was a high attempt 3-point team, and they were able to get those looks early and often and whenever. And I mean, they lit it up. So it's like, if you're not able to, and Musselman talked about the rebounding, that was kind of something they had circled, that they were like, hey, we should dominate the rebounding, and they weren't able to do it. So those are things that, again, they keep happening, which is why they continue to be concerned. So I think there's some very valid questions about this team in terms of what can they do defensively. Like, we know that they can play well in spurts here and there, but week to week, are they going to be able to slow down these teams, especially as the guards get better, the shooting gets better, the teams they play are going to have better ball movement? Like, there's real questions to answer, but I do agree that, this team seems like they kind of like the fan base, honestly, with the crowds, where it's like they kind of pick and choose when they seem to lock in. And it's weird because Musselman talked about it the other day. Like, they rebounded really well against Purdue and Zach Edey. Like, they didn't get beat on the boards there. They got out rebounded against North Carolina, but they were really adamant about keeping Baycott off the boards. And against Duke, they win the rebounding advantage, and that was a huge reason why. So it's not like this is just a team that can't do all of these things that we're talking about, whether it's 3-point defense, rebounding, transition defense, whatever. They've kind of shown an ability to, when they need to, they can lock it in. But week to week, it seems like it's a little whack-a-mole where it's like, hey, we fixed this issue, and now this one's popping up, and now we fixed this one, and now this one's popping up. But overall, I think this, it all leads to this weekend. This is such a pivotal game, and we can get into the matchup a little bit more. But all these questions that we're talking about are going to matter a lot less if Arkansas goes into Tulsa and beats this Oklahoma team. And I can't wait to see just what kind of version of this team we get, because we've seen this year that you might get a completely different version of this team every time you see them.
Yeah, that's a fact. I think you kind of nailed it with the whack-a-mole thing. I mean, right now, if you look at this team this season, they're like so many other programs early on in the college basketball year, right? Where they're just struggling with consistency. It's a good half followed by a bad half. It's fix one problem, create another. It's one guy has a huge game one night and he disappears the next. Those things evolve over the course of the season. I do think one guy who maybe encapsulates the last part of that is L-Ellis, right? I mean, he was great early in the season, massive slump in the Bahamas. He broke out in that Duke game, and then he played 12 uneventful minutes against Ferman. I think where I stand on this, and I'll definitely talk about it, but how does Arkansas solve this L-Ellis conundrum And do you agree that it's something that it needs to happen, or do you feel like maybe there are some better options elsewhere on the roster?
Well, okay, Eric Musselman knows the answer to this question, and I think you know the answer too, which is you just kind of got to let him play through it, especially with a guy like that that's a score first guard who is going to kind of be a little hit or miss there. You have the pieces on this team to compensate that. If L-Ellis is your leading scorer and your leading ball and he's doing everything for your offense, yeah, I get it why you'd be super frustrated with his inconsistency. But when you have the pieces Arkansas has on this team, like a Caleb Battle, like a Tremont Mark, like a Trevin Brazil when they're healthy, like a Devo Davis, the list goes on. It's not like they're counting on L-Ellis to give them this scoring punch every single night. So I feel like you can kind of afford to live with the roller coaster to an extent here. But, it's tough because obviously L shouldn't just be given free pass to do whatever he wants and turn the ball over 4 times or take these bad shots. I'm not saying that. But I think that Musselman would admit that there's times where you kind of have to let him just figure it out. I mean, we've seen him have games. I mean, the Greensboro game sticks out to me of one. I think he had 0 points in the first half and turned the ball over 3 or 4 times. Then he comes out the second half and he looks like a man on a mission and is getting to the rim and making things happen and almost led Arkansas all the way back. I think that's the kind of guy L-Ellis is. I think there's a lot of guys who are kind of wired similarly to him, and Musselman's coached these guys before, so he understands this. And I think if you asked him deep down, I think he knows 12 minutes like that, that's not what L-Ellis is going to be doing down the stretch for this team. That's not what he's going to be doing in conference play. And he probably did deserve a little bit more to work it out. I mean, even Caleb Battle only played 7 minutes in the first half. So I think there's a little bit of that balancing act of like, obviously you can't play 9 guys, 25 minutes. Not everyone's going to be satisfied. And in this particular game, it was Layden Blocker who kind of got the nod really in the first half over Battle and in the second half over Ellis, where they just kind of rode with him. I don't know what minutes he ended up with, but it had to be a career high. Is that something that's going to happen consistently? Is Layden Blocker going to play 30 minutes for this team? I doubt it, but hey, who knows? I mean, like we've talked about with him tons of times on this show, like if it's not going to happen, it's not going to be because of lack of effort. And credit to Layden for being ready to step in these situations and playing as hard as he's been when his number's been called upon. But I just think Arkansas, when it comes down to it, defensively, you might give up a little bit with L-Ellis, but you're going to need that scoring punch because scoring in the SEC is not going to be as easy as it was against Ferman and as it has been in some of these matchups, just as the competition rises, as teams lock in. And so I think having a guy that brings that kind of punch and someone you have to really guard like L-Ellis, I think that Arkansas is going to need him. And I think that Musselman knows that. I think everyone on the team knows they kind of have to get him going and get him a little bit more consistent. But I think part of it is you don't want to give him free reign, but I do think you just kind of have to let him play through some of these issues. And, I'm interested to see how he responds. I really like his mental makeup and the way he's approached this. And, they've praised him for getting feedback as much as he can. So I expect us to see the best version of L-Ellis soon. And I don't anticipate this being a story for too much longer, but hey, I would have said that a week ago. So we'll see.
Exactly. Yeah. It's you kind of nailed it on the head when you're talking about his mental approach. Like he's handling a lot better than I would. I think, you said, you think Eric Musselman probably knows this. Well, he does because he said it. I mean, I think after the game against Duke in the press conference, he said, Arkansas is better when L-Ellis is playing well. And he said he might need to let him play through some mistakes and settle in the games more. Well, he played through the first media timeout, but I went back and charted his rotations the rest of the game. So let me throw this at you. He checked back into the game 5 times, and here are his minutes. 1 minute, 10 seconds, out. 1 minute, 38 seconds, out. 1 minute, 45 seconds, out. 42 seconds, out. 47 seconds, out. So he was jogging over the bench like on the first dead ball every time, knowing that he was getting ready to come out. And like you said, it's a two-way street, right? Like, I mean, don't do the unnecessary behind the back pass and turn it over, figure out some things defensively, of course, but he's really got 0 leash right now. And so I don't know how you can expect him to play with the type of confidence and consistency you need out of your point guard when he's checking into a game, knowing that even the slightest miscue, he's coming right back out. It's a little interesting to me. I think Muss is probably frustrated with some of the things defensively right now because that's where Arkansas has been struggling. But this kind of goes against his philosophy of leaning on his best guys and letting them play. A lot of times it's a short rotation that plays a bulk of the minutes because he likes his guys to play with freedom rather than looking over their shoulder. And it's the exact opposite with a guy like L right now. So I agree. He's handling it the right way. But there's got to be some kind of balance there because I agree. Like I think you need him, but if this is how he's going to be utilized, where it's like, hey, one mistake, get out of there. Like I don't know how it's going to get any better for him. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was thinking about this, with the Ferman game in general, we always try to come away with all these like big takeaways where we're like, oh, what did we learn here? What did we learn here? But if you go back and look at some of the non-conference games under Eric Musselman, and Arkansas, has had a lot of success in non-conference play, but there's been a lot of games where if you just pick a random box score, like I remember when Arkansas played Elon over Christmas break a couple years ago, and Joseph Pinion played like 20 minutes, or I don't know, Jackson Robinson is who it was.
Yeah.
Played like 28 minutes, got to start and like hit a few threes. And like really at that point in time, it was like, dang, Jackson Robinson is locked into this rotation. And Aldis Toney played like 13 minutes in the game. And so it's like, there's a lot of like weird stuff like this has happened before. This is not without a little bit of a precedent, but you mentioned an important thing there with him leaning on his older guys, which is just kind of what we've come to expect him to do. And I think ultimately when it comes down to it, I expect Eric to lean on some of those guys like L a little bit more than he has. But hey, I want to give some credit here to Layden Blocker because he's kind of forced the issue to the best of his ability. Far from a perfect player, but
if he sucked, then they wouldn't be doing this. So yeah,
correct. If Layden Blocker were not ready to play, this would not. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. L would have just been playing this whole time without a thing. Now the next step of that is Layden. If you're going to really usurp all these minutes, there's got to be some of that scoring. There's got to be some of that playmaking, and the defense. I also feel like has to go up a notch because he definitely makes plays with his activity and his athleticism, and he can get out in transition and run here and there. But Arkansas's 3-point defense has still been bad. Arkansas's staying in front of the ball. They haven't been able to stay in front of ball handlers a ton, and they're not getting out in transition, and they're not. It's not like Layden is bringing a ton of ball handling and scoring. So it's like if he's going to be playing these 25 minutes, then we've kind of have to see some of these areas get solved. Not to put a ton of pressure on him, but I just feel like when we're talking about him versus Ellis and we're talking about how these minutes are going to be playing out down the stretch, I feel like some of these questions are ones you have to ask in terms of what does this look like if we really are going to do this where L-Ellis is not going to be playing 25, 30 minutes a game. What does that look like? And I think it honestly just gives Arkansas more problems to fix rather than it does solve anything on the defensive end where they've been sucking this whole time anyway. So it's like, if you're going to pull them for defense, your defense better not give up 84 points to Ferman,
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And you're right about Layden. He's I think he's a little bit ahead of schedule, but yeah, there's still things to work on. I think we've kind of seen in these last couple games, handling the ball against that pressure late in games, being able to step up and make free throws. Like those are things you got to have from your quote unquote point guard down the stretch of games. So, hey, it's a work in progress for a young guy who's getting comfortable out there. I think the game is starting to slow down for him. The assists have gotten a little bit better. I think he's getting more comfortable being aggressive and going to the rack and using that explosion. Is he going to get comfortable, being able to knock down a 3-pointer, or how is he going to adjust when he gets into SEC play and teams don't guard him on the perimeter? Because that's what Anthony Black ran into last year. Eventually he made that adjustment and kind of took his game to the next level. We'll see if Layden can do that too. But yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up. Like, you're right. We wouldn't even be having this conversation if Layden hadn't proven that he could play and step up and take some minutes. So that's been good. Another thing that's been good is the 3-point shooting, man. I mean, we thought that was going to be the case, but like, I think we approached it with caution all throughout the offseason because damn, man, like the last couple of years has been ridiculously bad.
Well, then the Greensboro game happened and they go freaking 4 for 22. And it's like,
exactly. Yeah. And they didn't shoot it particularly well in the Bahamas. So you're like, dude, are we really doing this again? Like, come on. But I think they figured that out. I mean, you look at it through 9 games, Arkansas has made 19 more threes than they did at this point last year. So that's more than 6 points per game that they're getting from 3. They're shooting it over 4% better from a team standpoint. That's significant. So, hey, man, like volume's better. Efficiency is better. Muss says that he thinks it can go to an even higher level. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. They're shooting 35.1% as a team right now. They're making just under, I think, 8 per game. Are you buying that? Like, do you think the shooting can get even better than it is right now?
I am buying it, and I think Devo Davis is a huge part of this because, I mean, look, I'm not saying Devo is going to be what he was in SEC play last year, which was like, a 42, 43% guy on high volume. I'm not expecting that by any means, but he's a guy who hasn't really given them a ton of production from three-point land. L-Ellis is another guy we've talked about a lot here, hasn't given them a ton of production from three-point land. Jeremiah Davenport, another guy we've been talking about a lot on this show, starting to show some signs of life here lately. but hasn't given them a ton of production in the 3-point department. And those are 3 guys that we kind of preseason, when we were saying all this stuff about how this team was going to have better 3-point shooting, these were some of the guys we were thinking about. And I wouldn't, it's not like they haven't hit any threes, but I think there's room for some growth with those 3 guys in particular. And, Trevin Brazil, I think, is shooting like 44% or something like that from 3. So and Tremont Mark shooting like 38, 39. Like, some of these things might come back down to earth a little bit, but I definitely do buy. And also, like, what were they, 8 of 19 the other night? Like, 19 is a fair number, but like, that's not like a crazy, like, they weren't chucking or anything. So I feel like there's actually some room for some more volume. And how many times, Curtis, has it happened this year where they're moving the ball around and you're like, oh, take that. And then they just don't take it and they kind of pass up a open 3, which, like, I don't have a problem with it. But I think Devo in particular is probably one of the biggest one, who is clearly trying not to assert himself too much offensively, which, again, he does every year. We've come to know it and love it and expect it. And I like that he's finding other ways to impact the game while doing that. But I mean, I feel like there's too many guys on this team who are capable of filling it up from outside for me to believe that, there's not some room for them to have some monster shooting nights, like some going 10 of 25, 10 of 24, like 11 of 26. Like, I think there's going to be some games where guys get hot and we see stuff like that happen. I mean, even Caleb Battle, who's had some huge scoring games, he hasn't had a game where he's hit like 6 threes yet. Like,
and
a lot of these guys are capable of doing stuff like that. I mean, kind of like what Tremont Mark did against North Carolina. So it's like, when I think big picture, I definitely do think that, especially when this rotation cuts down and they're not playing 2 big men constantly, I think there's definitely some room for some shooting variance there for sure.
Yeah, to a statistic to back up your point, I'm glad you mentioned all 3 of those guys because I looked it up before the show. And so right now, Davenport, Devo, and L-Ellis, those guys combined to shoot over 33.5% with good volume last year. All of them made a good number of threes. They're a combined 18 of 74 right now through. That's 24.3%. It is not far-fetched at all to think that'll balance out by the end of the year and go up to those career norms. So,
Well, and the volume of those guys. I mean, 74 attempts for 3 guys in 9 games. Is that 8 per game with those 3 guys? Not even.
It's not a lot. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, Jeremiah Davenport's a guy who, like, if he's playing 25 minutes, might shoot 7 threes a game, like, realistically. Right. Devo, we've seen him have game. I mean, what was he, like, 1 for 2 the other night? He's going to have games where he's 3 for 7, 3 for 6, like stuff like that. We really haven't seen a ton of. I think everyone's kind of in this mode where, like, they don't want to be the chucker early in the year, especially as you're trying to figure things out in non-conference.
Unless you're Battle, he doesn't care.
When scoring becomes at a little bit more of a premium, especially in these SEC games that are like 71 to 67, it's like, shoot some threes, man. It'll be all right. Like, just shoot some more threes. Just have a game. And like we've talked about this with Battle, which we're finally starting to get it. I've been saying all year, like, I kind of just want to see him just like take 20 shots and see what happens. He's starting to ramp it up a little bit offensively, but I do want to see a game where Arkansas just shoots 33s. Just like, see what happens. Will you make 12 of them? Maybe. Who knows? Just see what happens if you run your offense that way and see how much easier everything opens up, your transition game, everything else. I'm a classic analytics weirdo who's just, I convinced myself 10 years ago that 3s are more than 2. And so I'm like, and I'm a Houston Rockets fan too. So I watched Houston do this successfully and almost win a finals kind of with that mentality. I'm not expecting Arkansas to go full on, small ball and 3s everywhere, but I do think there's always room for a little bit more variance. It's just a wild card that Arkansas hasn't had the last couple of years that I'm enjoying watching this year.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting that you say that about the analytics and stuff, because I spend way too much time on KenPom, I think, than I need to. But looking at it right now, I'm a little bit surprised that Arkansas is 49th in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency. I think that's probably has a lot to do with the assist to turnover ratio, and they haven't been great at converting from the free throw line. But like, when you're shooting well from 3, and then you're also getting to the line at such a high rate, you think that would be a little bit higher. So I still think, and we talked about it before the season, like, could this be Eric Musselman's best offensive team at Arkansas? I still think it can be, because I do think they're going to get a little bit better in terms of keeping those assist numbers at a higher point, getting those turnovers down. God, man, like, knock on wood or whatever, but I do think they're going to be making some more free throws. But when you get to the line at that clip and you're knocking down 3s, like, you got a pretty decent thing going, I think. But I mean,
Curtis, how many shows in a row are we going to come on this very program and say that Arkansas is going to start making free throws, and they just keep not making free throws
until they prove us right, man? Like we just got to speak it into existence at this point, because like practice ain't doing it. I mean,
what did they finish the other night? Was it was like a little bit higher, right?
I think so. Well, they're actually up to 70% on the dot as a team, so that's better. That's progress. Let's see. Yesterday or the other day, they went 15 of 21, so 71.4%. So
I guess, yeah.
Like whatever. I think this team should be higher than that, but we'll take it.
Well, we were talking about Leighton Blocker earlier. Him going 1 of 4 didn't help.
Right.
And honestly, that's what there just keeps being random stuff like that keeps happening, where it's like either it's Jalen Graham or Mackay or like Leighton Blocker or whoever that just like their one performance. Because if you take out that 1 for 4, Arkansas shot well from the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
But they always have just like a weird thing that happens where someone that shouldn't be shooting free throws shoots 4 or 5 free throws, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about computers here, I guess that's a good segue into everybody's favorite, the net rankings. Man, look, Arkansas hasn't gotten off to the start that they anticipated, right? I mean, but they haven't been horrible. We sat here last week on this show, and we knew the net rankings were going to debut on Monday, and we set the over-under at 47.5. Arkansas came in at number 117 on Monday. Like, wow, man. Listen, it fluctuates daily. I get it. It's too early to get too caught up in all that stuff with the full SEC schedule, yada, yada. But you could tell that Eric Musselman was taken aback by it. I certainly was. I've got some strong opinions on this. I know you do too. What do you make of this whole net rankings ordeal?
Okay, I'm going to do my best to toe the line as good as I can and present both sides here.
Okay.
So, one, we know for sure that your net ranking in November and December does not matter. We have historical evidence every year to prove that is the case. I mean, what was it, 2 years ago, Arkansas started at 80, 90, and they finished in the top 20. And that's not, and that team started at 80, and then they lost to Hofstra after, if I remember correctly, or if they I don't remember if they were down there, but it's like, there's plenty of room. So I see people on Twitter being like, oh man, like this Arkansas has to win this game because they're 107. I'm like, dude, they could literally lose their next 4 games and then still make the tournament. Like it really, it's when you haven't even started conference play, trying to make sense of metrics is useless. Arkansas hasn't even played a road game yet. You know what I mean? Like literally just going, even if Arkansas went and lost a road game right now, they would bump up 16 spots because the computer, it's such a flawed concept. And that's why I really wish, if you're going to release it the 1st of December or whatever, just go ahead and have it like KenPom where it's running all year. So you can at least get out in front of it and know that it's an incomplete data set that isn't. But the fact that they release it at such a specific time, I feel like it leads people to believe that it's like, oh, they've got enough evidence. And now here's a legitimate snapshot. And that's just not what it's been. And that's not what it's ever been.
Yes.
All that being said, Curtis, Musselman was taken back by it. I was taken back by it. You were taken back by it because we did not expect that number to be 117. And I say all that, it's moved up, right? What are they at now? 106?
I think they might have dropped a little bit, 111, 112.
They've gone up and down 4 times since we first learned about this.
Case in point, but yeah.
Right, but exactly. And so it's I think that while we acknowledge the fluctuation and that it doesn't really matter, it matters to an extent because it just puts a little bit of pressure. And like I just said, that Oklahoma's not a must-win game. It's not a must-win game. Do not listen to people who tell you it's a must-win game. Arkansas could easily lose this one and then win 14 of their next 16 and be fine. But the point is that it's just you don't give yourself that leeway. And Arkansas's schedule is going to kind of even itself out a little bit because they played a solid schedule. They just don't have any road games in it now, so it doesn't reflect on paper as a tough schedule. But by the end of the year, their schedule will be a solid one, especially when some of these non-conference teams kind of like Duke is a little bit lower than they should be. North Carolina, Memphis is lower than we thought they'd be. Those kind of teams are going to rise up, and maybe some of their other opponents might stay in the same range or move down, but there's going to be so much fluctuation. But Arkansas definitely, needs to start kind of building some things toward that resume. You win this Oklahoma game against an undefeated team who is top 20 in this, end-all be-all net rankings we're talking about here. So it's getting a win in a neutral site like that buys you a lot of breathing room, probably bumps you up to top 75. Realistically, they could jump up 30 spots overnight. It really is that kind of situation. But I just think it'll give them a lot of help. And, if they lose this game, all of a sudden it's those first conference games become really pressure filled and Arkansas is going to have to start off on the right foot, which, we've seen this team do that plenty of times. So it's not like Arkansas is incapable of overcoming any of this, but seeing them be at 117 was definitely jarring. And while we expect it to go up pretty quick here soon, it's definitely notable, and it's something worth talking about, which is why we had to ask Eric Musselman about it. And I'm glad he gave us his true thoughts finally, instead of dismissing it as something that doesn't matter at all, which I think we could have both agreed that as much as we've been making fun of the net, it's not a useless tool. I mean, the NCAA tournament committee uses it every year. By the end of the year, it's going to matter. It just doesn't necessarily matter right now.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how Muss was going to react when I asked him about that yesterday. And I loved his last sentence where he was like, listen, like, this just gives you guys something to talk about and me something to be in a bad mood about. And he kind of gave that halfway crooked smile. And it's like, yeah, he knows it pisses him off. Of course it does. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like, to me, one of two things needs to happen here. Like, you either run it at the beginning of the year and all the way through, like you said, like kind of like Kim Pom does. That way you just see it from the beginning, or wait. Like, why the hell are you doing it in December before anybody's played conference games? So, for example,
half the country hasn't played a road game. Half the country.
Exactly. Yeah. And High Point, for example, who is ahead of Arkansas in the net rankings, they're getting ready to go into conference play where they're going to play 2 quad 4 games a week. And Arkansas is getting ready to go into conference play where they're going to be playing quad 1s every other day. And so all this stuff is going to balance out. So it kind of gives this unnecessary initial shock factor. And I know like the college football playoff, that's not a computer ranking or whatever, but still, like, they wait until well over halfway into the season to release that stuff. And there's a reason why they do that. So when like if you listen to Ken Pomeroy, it's like, hey, I'm going to have like preseason, bias built into my stuff. Like, we're not really going to have a good reflection until January. Well, then why are we putting out this net ranking and say, hey, this is the sorting tool for NCAA seeding to get everybody all worked up? And you're right, because we could very easily wake up on Sunday and Arkansas has beaten Oklahoma and Duke beats whoever they play this weekend. And you look up and Arkansas is, out of nowhere, they've got 2 quad 1 wins and they jump up near the top 50. And we're like, well, what the hell was going on last week? Like, not much has changed. Yeah. It's crazy to me. I did find it interesting though, that Devo and Caleb Battle after the game against Ferman, those guys mentioned margin of victory a half dozen times in that post-game press conference. So this is something that's been drilled in to the team's heads, whether they want to admit it or not. But so if you look at how the net calculates, they say they cap it margin of victory at 10 points. Like, you beat somebody by 10, you beat them by 50, it doesn't make a difference. Bullcrap, because it's also about offensive and defensive efficiency. So if you're blowing teams out, you're going to have a more efficient showing. So in some ways, and you'll see this throughout the course of the year because people have been complaining about it. I've been complaining about it on this show for 3 years now. Like, Arkansas will win, a home game against Auburn or whoever by 5, and they'll move up 3 or 4 spots, but then they'll go on, and play a crappy team like, Vanderbilt, even though they've been beating Arkansas in the past, but you know what I'm saying, and beat them by 25 and jump up 20 spots. And so it's kind of crazy how that works. A bracketologist that I follow on Twitter, he sent out a really interesting tweet this morning, and he said Miami, they jumped 20 spots in the net last night. How'd they do that? They beat Long Island, who is ranked number 343 in the country at Kim Pom. They beat them by 48. They jumped 20 spots. That's crazy to me. So at the end of the day, though, like, when people were fussing at me because I wasn't patting Arkansas on the back by screwing around with Ferman the other day, this is the place that I'm coming from, because look, you win by 14. Like, Arkansas was never in danger of losing that game. But if they wanted to, and they stayed focused the entire night, they could have won that game by 30 and it would have done them more good. Like, that's
winning by 22. They're probably top 100 in net if they win by 22 instead of 14 or whatever.
Exactly. And so, it's all about getting quality wins. And that can mean a couple different things, like beating the hell out of bad teams according to the net. That's a quality win. Or taking care of business against actual quality opponents. And Arkansas, like you mentioned, they got a chance to do that on Saturday against Oklahoma in this Crimson and Cardinal Classic that they like to call it. I don't know if I'm feeling that name or not, but that's what they call it.
That's fine.
We're going to be there at the BOK Center in Tulsa. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun trip. This game is kind of crazy compared to what you expected coming into the season. It looks a lot more daunting. Like, it's a complete reversal. Arkansas entered the season highly ranked, and now they've had some setbacks. They're trying to climb back up. Oklahoma was picked 12th in the Big 12, and now they're undefeated, number 19 in the country. So a completely different look from past years. I think Porter Mosier's done a really good job of, identifying like, hey, what I did at Loyola is probably not going to work in the Big 12. And so he went out and got some dudes. He's got more talent. They're more athletic.
Completely different roster. I remember even early in the year looking at their box score, and I was like, what are these? Who are these names? I watched Oklahoma play twice. Like, I should know some of them. I didn't remember any. I was like, who the heck?
We talk about how Muss flips a roster. Like, Mosier really went out and did that. I mean, they've got a couple guys who are back, but they're really leaning on some newcomers. I know a big challenge for Arkansas is going to be, on the glass, right? And Muss had a lot to say about that. You wrote about it. So what do you make about, the importance of the rebounding battle on this one, especially, which is also a good segue into Trevin Brazile. We don't know what it's going to look like for him on Saturday either.
So this is very interesting. One, if you're going into a matchup where you need rebounding, you really don't want your leading rebounder to sprain his ankle. That's just my opinion. I don't, take that for what it's worth. I don't think you want to have your leading rebounder out for the game when you have a big matchup in this department. But I will say, Curtis, I was doing some research. Oklahoma, they don't have a single starter over 6'9", but they're top 25 in rebounding rate. They're like top 50 in offensive rebounds. But they also, if you look at their team's stats, like they don't have a guy who's like averaging 12. Everyone on the team is averaging like 5. They have like 7 dudes averaging like 4.8 to 5.7. Like everyone is rebounding. It's the guards. They're crashing. Like they're rebounding their 3-point misses. Like they're doing it in a very specific and, I will say almost an unsustainable way. And if you look at some of their matchups, like they've been out rebounded against some of the best teams. I think they've been out rebounded once and they tied against someone else. But it's not like they've been just dominating good teams on the boards. Like they played Mississippi Valley State and out rebounded them like 52-20. So I feel like this is a case of a team that is like, I don't want to say overachieving. They're overachieving big picture for sure. But in the rebounding department, it's like, I don't know. I think it's not fool's gold because if Arkansas is not careful, they will get out rebounded. If they show up like they did against Ferman, they absolutely will because this Oklahoma team crashes with everyone to the board. So it's something they got to work on. But I think that Muss didn't want to say it in the press conference, but I could pick it up a little bit where he kind of had a little bit of quiet confidence where he was like, yeah, they're a good rebounding team. But, I think he secretly kind of knew like when Arkansas played Duke and they knew they had to rebound, they rebounded. When they played Purdue and they played Zach Edey, they knew they had to rebound and they rebounded. So it's like, I think he knows that his team is capable of rising to the occasion there. And so that's definitely going to be a huge factor. But like I said, if they show up like they did Monday, then all bets are off. You give up 15 offensive rebounds to Ferman. Oklahoma is not the type of team you want to face next. But I do think that it's not like a matchup where it's like Oklahoma is going to impose themselves physically on Arkansas. It's more going to be just kind of, can they get loose balls? Are they going to get those 50-50 ones? Can their guards box out and stuff like that? And historically, Arkansas does pretty well in these departments. So I'm thinking, I think a guy like L-Ellis in particular, you think about him, like we've been talking about him so much. If you're him, you better be boxing out. Like your life depends on it in this particular matchup if you're trying to stay on the floor. So I think and Arkansas has guards like Caleb Battle does a pretty good job rebounding for the most part. Devo's rebounded well. Tremont Mark, if he's back to form a little bit, he's a pretty good rebounder. So it's like, I think Arkansas is equipped to deal with some of these issues that Oklahoma presents, but it's certainly something that they have to address for sure.
I really like one of the things that I'm kind of surprised actually that he said it publicly, but Porter Mosier is not an idiot, but a team that crashes the offensive glass so hard is vulnerable in transition on the other end. And that's kind of something he said, like, hey, if they're going to send 4 or 5 guys to the offensive glass, that's fine. We got to box out and secure the rebound, but then boom, you go.
Curtis, and maybe giving away all the secrets, bro.
Let's speed up that tempo, man, because I'm tired of seeing Arkansas try to run half-court offense. Run the floor. I want to see it, man.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that because, look, anytime you're looking at the stat, like Arkansas's offensive performance against Ferman, when you take into account that they really didn't get out in transition that much, I think they finished with like 19 fast break points, which is a solid number, but when you scored 97, it's not that much. Arkansas's offensive numbers, we're talking about them, they're pretty good across the board. Pretty much all of this is in half court. They're not getting the benefit of like easy buckets and catching the opponent sleeping. Like these are all the buckets they're getting are like earned buckets. And I agree. Arkansas needs to find a way to create some of those easy 2-on-1 opportunities and kind of flip the script on their opponents. And that, it's crazy that we're saying this about an Arkansas team, because it's like, regardless of who the head coach is at Arkansas is almost like Georgia Tech with the triple option, or like a service academy, where it's like, they might not be running full court press, but their guards are going to be slapping at that ball. Like, you just know Arkansas is going to be a high steal team every year, and they're going to be a team that likes to get out and run. It's like, so it's so bizarre to see a team like this that it's like, I don't know. It's very weird. I don't want to say they don't have an identity, because they do. I mean, they're clearly doing something right, and they have, shown an ability, but it's like, what is this team's identity, Curtis? You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. Like, offensively, what's their like plan? If you had to pick it out, like, do they really? I mean, it seems like it's pretty much all in the half court.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where they're at right now. It's bizarre. I think they were very clear and very open about the fact that they thought they were going to be a team that played at a really fast pace and a high tempo. I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't go out and get a big, bowling ball center to clog up the lane.
Yeah.
Their forwards are athletic. They're guys that can run the floor. And I thought that's what they were going to do. And I think you kind of hit on it on some of the reasons why it hasn't happened. One, you're not getting a lot of stops. Two, you're not creating a lot of turnovers to fuel that transition. So I think as the defense gets better and maybe more disruptive, then they're going to have some more opportunities. That tempo will go up. But yeah, they really haven't been pushing the issue that much in transition, and they get bogged down in the half court sometimes. It's been up and down. Like, some games it's really stagnant. It's ugly, like it was in the Bahamas. They looked really good against Duke and Ferman. So maybe they've turned a corner there. I'm not ready to say that yet, because it's been so up and down so far. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a big factor in this game against Oklahoma, because you're going to need some easy buckets in a game like this. The last 2 years we've gone down there, it's been Oklahoma both years that starts off ridiculously hot in both games. Like, I remember, I think in the first 10 minutes of both of those games that, the Sooners missed like 3 total shots. It's crazy. They're just making everything.
How many threes did they hit a couple years ago when we were there? Like 13?
They were like 13 of 21 that year. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And then Arkansas settles in, but you don't want to get in a situation where you've got to dig out of a hole because, you let a team come out and hit, 12 of 13 shots to start the game. That's what Oklahoma did against Providence in their last game the other day. They jumped out, I think, 12-0. And it took Providence until midway through the second half to claw back and get that lead. They ran out of gas in the process, and they got blown out at the end of the game. So it's going to matter. Oklahoma's good, man. I mean, I don't know that I'm buying them as, a legit top 20 team and a threat to win the Big 12 title, but they're better than they have been the last couple years. The McCollum kid, their point guard, their combo guard, whatever you want to call him, that dude is a major problem. Like, he represents everything that Arkansas struggled with. So Arkansas has allowed 9 different players to score more than 20 points in the last 7 games. This dude could very easily be the 10th. Devo has to be much better than he's been defensively. And every time we ask about him, it's like, yeah, well, he gets the toughest defensive assignment ever. And that's true. Like, he gets
what's his grade for that assignment been?
Exactly. It hasn't been this year. Maybe it has been in years past. Like, he has got to keep.
You see it in spurts here and there. You could see it every few possessions. And so it's like, it's in there. But one thing you mentioned, the McCollum kid, is he the one with dreads?
I don't remember if he has dreads or not.
But he's good. I think it is him. But he had a huge night the other night. I was watching their game.
Yes, it's him.
Musselman mentioned that their guards keep their dribble alive longer than other teams, and that's actually something I was noticing with Ferman. Is like their guards would like get penetration and then like turn around and kick out. I was like, wait, what? But McCollum and all these Oklahoma guards, they're just going to dribble around until they find openings, and Arkansas hasn't been able to keep opposing guards in front of them. So it's like that really is a concerning part. That concerns me a little bit more than the rebounding or anything else in terms of just like, are these guards going to be able to get to the lane whenever they want? Are they going to be able to just kind of dribble around, or they going to be able to just score at will on these guards that Arkansas has guarding? It'll be interesting. But, I mentioned the term overachieving earlier in terms of the rebounding, but overall, I don't think it's unfair at all to say that the team that was picked 12th in the Big 12 is overachieving by being 9-0 right now. And I don't think it's unfair to say that Arkansas, who started 14th in the country, that's unranked, is underachieving to this point. Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to flip and that it's going, but historically, when you get a team like that, I mean, Arkansas was in the opposite situation 2 years ago. Arkansas was like 9 or 10-0 going into this game, playing against an Oklahoma team that had been, not great to that point. And we saw it kind of flip in a dramatic way there, and like a 30-point win. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but I think that if you were trying to find like who's due for what, I think there's definitely some of that there, but these issues that we're talking about, I mean, you've got to be able to stop the ball and you've got to be able to get out in transition. I mean, there was a point in time where I remember Duke had a missed free throw and set up a 3/4 court zone off of that, which you just don't see. You know, you always talk about when you're a team that wants to trap, you always hear coaches be like, "Hey, if they made free throw, that's when we do it." You never hear a coach say, "Hey, set up the trap off a missed free throw." I've never even seen that before, and they did it because of how slow Arkansas's pace is. But I just thought that was funny. But I agree with everything you're saying, and you know, jumping around a little bit here, but I agree with wholeheartedly. I think that if there's anything that gives me confidence, it's that Oklahoma has played above their level, I would say, these last few weeks, especially.
Yeah, I think in this game in particular, ball screen defense is going to be really important. You know, just because I'm assuming that Devo is going to be on McCollum. Devo is a guy who defends his ass off, but he's notorious for going under ball screens and getting popped. And McCollum loves when guys do that because he'll step back and knock down that three. And then the other part of it, Arkansas is in that drop coverage. So Mackay or whoever's just hanging out back there. They've got that center from Pitt, Hughley, whatever his name is, who's a really good pick and pop 3-point shooter. And, you know, Arkansas struggled with that in the past with the Groves kids. Who really gave him problems from Oklahoma. Yeah. So I think those two things are going to be really important. And then the deal with Brazil, like I can't really tell if Muss is being coy or if this is a really bad ankle sprain. On the surface, it didn't look that bad. Now, I've rolled my ankle before and adrenaline's popping. I'm thinking, you know what, man, like I can get back out there on like the asphalt or wherever we play basketball and it'll all be fine. But then I wake up the next morning, I can't move and it's big and swollen, whatever. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe he's not trying to give away any trade secrets here. But I think it's a huge factor. If you've got Brazil, I feel really, really good about this game. If you don't, you know, this was the first game last year when Arkansas didn't have Trevin Brazil and they figured it out. They got the win over Oklahoma.
Nick Smith Jr. though.
They did have Nick Smith Jr. How would you adjust for this game if you were Muss and you let's say hypothetically you don't have Brazil? Because on the surface I would think, well, that you go 4 guards, you get Davenport in there, whatever. But for some reason we were seeing a lot of Jalen Graham and Mackay on the floor at the same time against Ferman. So I don't know. I guess you got a few different options there.
Yeah, you mentioned the Mackay and Graham. I thought that was bizarre. And you know, it's kind of crazy. I've been preaching since the beginning of the season or preseason that I want this team to go small with Brazil at the 5. But call me crazy, Curtis. I think with Brazil out, you kind of have to go small with not him at the 5. We've seen Chandler Lawson in that spot, and I've seen them go small with Mackay at the 5. Just to have kind of like a true center in there. I'm okay with either of those options, especially with Lawson, because he's shown a little bit of that versatility to kind of mix and match. But Mackay, you might need Mackay just for a pure rebounding standpoint, because you're going to play 4 guards. And I think that's what this comes down to. What Arkansas can do with their lineups comes down to what these guys are able to do. If Tremont Mark has to slide in at the 4, can he get rebounds? Can he defend his position? If he can, and if these guards are playing well and L-Ellis is making shots and Caleb Battle is scoring and you're kind of forcing Oklahoma to defend you and they're struggling with that, I see that Arkansas could have a lot of success in this matchup because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. It's not like Oklahoma's a big team. You know, they do have rebound and they're physical and they crash the glass, but they're not a big team that's like if you go small against them, they're going to pound it inside and just low post you all day. They're really not that kind of team. They do have capable scorers at kind of every spot. They're pretty versatile, but I think going small actually might be the answer here. And maybe I'm just that kind of guy where that's my answer every time. But in this particular matchup, I actually think, especially when you need to get L-Ellis going, I think you just got to let these guards see if they can win this game for you, see if they can score, and hopefully they play out of their mind on the other end and can at the very least get some rebounds. But I think that might be Arkansas's best chance here.
I think I agree. You know, if you go back to those games the last couple of years, 2 years ago, it was when Arkansas elected to go small and they moved Stanley Amude down into the front court that they started to make a run. Now they wound up getting their ass kicked anyway, but that's when they made their run and got back in the game. Last year, it was the same deal. They went smaller. You know, a lot of Jordan Walsh at the power forward spot, whatever. And Mackay played really well in that game at the center spot, but they were using, you know, Kamani in there. They were just kind of platooning, but that was before Arkansas started doing the Twin Towers thing, whatever they were trying to do with the Mitchell twins last year. and it worked for him in that game. I think, even though at Oklahoma, like we said, they got some dudes now, like they're more athletic than they have been in the past, but I think that might be the move for them. The game itself, I like it, man. Like I like the atmosphere over there. It's cool. I like the regional aspect of it. The neutral site deal, it's going to be a pro Arkansas crowd if it's been anything like it has been the last couple of years. But it's the last time they'll do it before Oklahoma joins the SEC, which Muss doesn't care about, apparently, because he said that yesterday. It was kind of an interesting question, like, hey, does Oklahoma join the SEC, add anything to this game? He's like, no, I don't care. They're trying to just win this game now. But I wonder if they try to continue to play here, because this Oklahoma game was in flux throughout the course of the summer. I thought it might get moved to Oklahoma City, and then it sounded like they weren't going to do it. I even heard rumblings that they might replace that with Oklahoma State and play it there in Tulsa. So the neutral site thing is cool. I like the feast week, like the MTEs thing, the things that Arkansas has been doing. But I think there's something to be said for like a regional out of conference game like that. You look around, you see, Oklahoma State, you see a Kansas, Memphis, talking to you, Penny, on the other side of the state. Like, I wonder if they're going to be able to get, kind of a neutral site game that can kind of be one of those 50-50 splits with a good crowd and a good draw moving forward.
Nothing's cooler than a neutral site game.
Love it.
Everyone wins. Even though you'd rather, when it comes to the resume time, you'd rather it be a true road game for your thing. But it's like, what better way to prepare you for the NCAA tournament than playing a good team in a neutral site? Do you know what I mean? Like, what else are you going to do? I really like it. I think that it's an interesting atmosphere. Considering Tulsa's a nice spot for both fans. Yeah, I'm open if they want to move it to a cooler arena. I won't complain at all. If we have to go watch them play in the Thunder Arena, all right.
Darn,
I'll do it. If they want to make us go to St. Louis, sure, okay. I don't care where you do it. I'm with you though. I'm all for these things. I would love to see Arkansas get something going with Memphis in one of these locations. And maybe who knows where. There's all kinds of possibilities. But I'm with you. I love this atmosphere, and I was stunned a couple years ago. There were so many Arkansas fans there, and one number at the time a couple years ago, we were having the same conversations about the crowds at Bud Walton, but. Man, more people showed up to that game in Tulsa, if I remember correctly, than a lot of those non-conference games. So
it's a fact.
We expect to see a lot of y'all there. And, I know that Hog fans only show up when apparently it has to be a great opponent for Hog fans to want to play. So thank God Oklahoma has a 19 next to their name. So maybe we'll get some fans there. Apparently, we started talking about this crowd stuff recently. Every time you bring it up, people are like, oh, I mean, we showed up for Duke, but Ferman? Ugh. I'm like, dude. The Arkansas Razorbacks, man. If you're a fan of the Arkansas Razorbacks, just go to the games. Like, I don't understand.
The Hogs are the draw, man. The Hogs are the draw. I'm with you on that one. I'm sure it'll pick up once SEC play starts and everything like that. But I think it's just had maybe it's amplified to me this year because I think it's had such an impact on how the team plays. Like, if you put Arkansas and Ferman in not even the same atmosphere as Duke, but like just a better atmosphere, I think that game gets out of hand quick. But it just kind of had a weird feeling there. I mean, it just did the other night.
I'm not trying to blame the fans.
No,
I think we all agree they lost the Greensboro games because the fans didn't show up. I'm just saying there was a tangible effect here. I mean, you think they were bad? They were a bad basketball team when they played Greensboro and all of a sudden became good against Duke? No, there was twice as many fans there and it changed the entire thing. Like, that's why it's frustrating because, like you said, there is a legit tangible effect. And I'm kidding. Arkansas stuck against Greensboro. That's why they lost. But you get my point of like, I get it where it's like, oh, it's, not every opponent's going to get you out of bed in the morning and you're going to be super excited. But it's like, you see it on the court. Like this team thrives whenever there's a ton of fans there. And like, it's just crazy to me that there's so many tickets that are sold that go unused. But, we don't need to rant about it too much. We've done it enough already.
For sure.
It is what it is.
My only things about the BOK Center that I feel like I need to throw out there. One, the media seating. Like, they've got us up in the rafters, like on the walkway. It's just a really weird setup that I'm not crazy about. Whatever. The court, hopefully they've rectified that situation. There's like 6 3-point lines on the court. Like, it's like a YMCA
playing 9 different sports on this surface. Apparently,
I remember a couple years ago, like JD Note is out there and he's like, the hell with him. I'm just going to shoot 30 footers. That way I know I'm good, you know? So that's been kind of weird, but dude, we've been talking about food. Like the hospitality room over there is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Man. They do it up for the media with the food. So that I am definitely looking forward to. The other interesting thing and then we can move on to some comments and get out of here. But another interesting thing that Muss was talking about, he's been mentioning a lot about how they might have to kind of reevaluate how they're going to do some scheduling. Because it's just different now with the transfer portal and the way some of these small schools are able to beef up their programs, whatever. But a lot of people have been clamoring about, and it kind of goes back to our crowd situation of, man, you get better teams in there, like more people are going to come. And I think he realizes that. And I think he also realizes the value of playing home and homes against these high majors. It can be tricky to do. Like he said, it's one thing for somebody to express interest in playing a game. And it's another thing when you start throwing dates around and then all of a sudden it just doesn't work out. Again, I think probably talking to you, Penny, but at any rate, they've got this event in San Diego next year where it's just going to be a 2-game deal. It's Arkansas, Purdue, Notre Dame, and BYU. And he was talking about like, hey, maybe we go down a little bit early and we try to play another game against a power conference team in the area or down there in Southern Cal. And then we get a return game to Bud Walton the next year. So that could be really cool. Like Arkansas might go to UCLA or USC or San Diego State. I don't know if they're going to accept that game.
Go back to Nevada. Let's go back to the scene of the crime.
I mean, come on, man. So that's a way to do it, right? Is, if you want somebody to come into your arena, you're probably going to have to go into theirs. Could be a creative situation for them to get that done. But I think, if you're an Arkansas fan, that should make you feel a little bit better about it because people have been ticked about this, the non-conference schedule in years past, but hey, they're making a concerted effort to get some dudes in there. There's not teams lining up who just want to come play in Bud Walton Arena because it's almost a guaranteed loss.
I'm glad you said that. Cause like everyone says that all the time, but they're like, why don't we just play like 30 good teams? And like especially because you got to understand most of these teams, when I say most, every team does some type of November tournament or November trip of some sort. And they probably have a neutral site game or some other notable game already on their schedule. There is zero incentive for, let's say, Arkansas did a home and home with Indiana, but I'm trying to think like Illinois. There is zero, and I do mean zero, incentive for Illinois to come to Bud Walton Arena in November or December. The only reason they would do it is if it's a situation like Duke or a Big 12 team where they're doing this ACC Big 12 challenge or whatever, which again, that was literally made so y'all would shut up and so y'all would go to games. And y'all literally just got Duke and y'all are complaining about the quality of you're like, Ferman. I mean, it's like, dude, you're not going to be able to get 30 games a year where these teams are going to want to come in and play you for free or let alone for even money. I mean, it's just hard to do. So it's like, y'all can pretend like that's an Arkansas specific issue, but it's just not everywhere else. It's the same situation. Go look at anyone's schedule. They look the exact same, like all of them. It all lays out about the same. So it's like anyone who like truly thinks this is like an Arkansas issue or like Muss isn't trying to schedule, like just it's a misunderstanding of just how the world works, And you mentioned coaches wanting to, Muss wanting to do the initiative of doing the road trip so that they can get one back. I know Dave Van Horn loves to do that. He's like, oh, we'll travel 1 year, just come back, And so maybe that's something that Muss has to get creative with how he does. But, nobody wants to travel in November and December. Nobody's dying to like get on a plane and fly to a hostile environment. It's just not a thing. And there's no incentive. Why would Arkansas do it? If someone called up Musselman and was like, hey, we're here in Washington, we want you to come up on November 17th and play us. It's like, why? Why would we do that? So it's like, I just think it's a little bit unrealistic to think that like, there's not going to be games like Gardner Webb on the schedule. Like it's just going to be a thing, but you don't have to go to them, but it is kind of disappointing when there's 8,000 people at the games at the place that holds 20,000.
Yeah, Muss was kind of a victim of some of those home and homes that were already contracted when he took the job. Like, I mean, they went to Indiana and they wound up winning that game, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did at
Mason
Indiana.
Jones beat them, yeah.
But like they had to have that return game at Georgia Tech, and they needed the bank shot from Mason Jones to get out of there, and Georgia Tech sucked.
That's what every coach should do to Mike Anderson. Sign up for the home and home, take the home game, and then get out of there.
Get out of here. Yeah. And there's the same thing with Western Kentucky. Like, that's crazy to me because
that was nuts.
They came to Arkansas, whatever, but like, there's no way I would ever sign up to go to a place like that. That's why when I keep seeing people pat.
Arkansas went to Tulsa a couple years ago.
Like, what are we doing? People
Yeah.
keep patting Bruce Pearl on the back. It's like, wow, that's big for Auburn to go play at Appalachian State. Well, they lost, and a win would have done nothing for them. Like, why would you do that?
An objectively bad decision.
Yeah,
Credit to Auburn
bravo,
for
man.
making a bad decision.
Yeah, there's no way I would do that. Whatever. Anyway, let's check out the comments.
Let's do it.
Daddy Daughter Playlist says, oh, this is a good one for you. This team seems destined for small ball with a variety of iterations that exclude Makai and JG. Are you seeing that as well? Do you see those guys playing significantly more in SEC play? Floor is yours.
Yes, Daddy Daughter Playlist. Just load up a bus with everyone over 6'7" and kick them out. Except for Trevin Brazil. Keep him, but kick them out. Just anyone who's over 6'7", out of here. Done.
I love it. I love it. And, I do think, they're going to need Makai. Like they're going to need the beef at times.
At the very least, to a certain extent,
but if you look around the SEC, it's not like it has been years past, and the country is the same way. I mean, who are the big imposing dominating centers that you're going to see out there? Like,
well, I did see one
Smith,
is back. Tolu
Smith
might be back soon.
Yeah. So there's him.
Yeah.
Janai Broom, whatever, like he's pretty good at Auburn. Sure. Like it's just not. Is
he a big man? Is he really a big man? He's big, but it's like he's not going to post up anybody.
And then here's my main thought about it: is who has proven that they can handle guys like that? It's Chandler Lawson. Chandler Lawson is the guy. Ask Zach.
If you're an All-American big man, you do not want to see the claw.
You don't want to see the claw, man. That's 100% right. 100%. Chris D says, regarding Muss's comments about OU joining the SEC, did he just shut himself up because he realized he was walking into giving OU bulletin board material? That's what I love about Muss and his candor.
I'll be honest with you, Curtis. I think he gave his extremely honest answer, which is, why the hell would I care who's in the SEC? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, like next year when they play them, cool, it'll be an SEC game. But it's like, it doesn't really have any bearing on this game, right?
No.
Especially because it's like, it's not like Arkansas and OU fans are going to get introduced to each other Saturday. Like they've played Oklahoma before. Like these fan bases know each other. These teams know each other. These programs, like, I don't think it adds anything extra. Now, again, like next year, Arkansas will be they'll be in a conference opponent. And so it's like, if you want to reference these games as bragging rights for, I would say, do you ever reference those A&M games that Arkansas played with A&M before A&M joined the SEC? Probably not, unless you reference the last time Arkansas won back-to-back games against A&M. But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think, like in hindsight, I don't like look back at those games and I'm like, oh, that set the tone, So I think Musk was probably just being honest and like, no, I don't really care that much.
Right. And he even mentioned Texas in there. He was like, I don't care, like if we were playing Texas or whatever, like it's, whatever.
Especially because it's not like Musk has a strong connection to the SEC or the Big 12 or like, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't surprised by that. I think that it probably came out of his mouth and he probably realized maybe that's not exactly what I intended to say, but he doesn't care, man. That guy wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Although you want to talk about bullet board material, that's one dude who searches freaking far and wide to find that bulletin board material.
Oh, that's a fact, man. That is an absolute fact. I'll tell you from a behind the scenes standpoint, like, they were doing that in the Bahamas, man, and it was hilarious. Like,
Kingsley, what's up?
Yeah, man. Kingsley, our guy. This is my favorite push notification of the week. What's good, fellas? Kingsley, we appreciate you, man. I see your other comment. You say that Arkansas has not lost when King Jr. sleeps all the way through the game. So maybe we're getting up at 4 a.m. on Saturday. Hey, listen, you might just take one for the team, get them up early. Little walk around, little exercise,
Dude, they sell Benadryl at every corner mark. Anywhere you go, they sell Benadryl and melatonin. I mean, come on.
We're not promoting that, but hey, whatever you got to do, make sure that child is asleep because Arkansas is going to need a win in this game. And quite honestly, you put it out there now, so it's on you. No pressure.
Right.
Chris D says Ellis is in a new role and he's struggling a bit. I think he'll be fine.
I don't think I'm doing that poorly. I think I've done a decent job on this show, and I don't understand why we got to take shots.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do the performance review and stuff, at a later time. But I didn't know that we were going to do this in a public forum. That was well done because at first when you started talking, I was like, "What the hell is he talking about?" No, L-Ellis, not
You're
Andrew
just taking
Ellis.
shots at me, Chris, man. That's crazy.
Well done. Yeah. And, Andrew and L, they are, they're in different roles. Sometimes they're really on top of their game and look like they might be kind of the straw that stirs the drink here. And other times, the rest of the team's got to step up and carry them. So we're working on it. I agree. Both of them have some work to do, but you're right. They're going to be just fine. No doubt.
On a serious note, though, I really do think this is it's not even as much the role. It's like the situation is just, when you go from being the leading scorer on the worst team in the country to trying to find your way on a legitimate team and trying to figure out how, it's just a bunch of guys you've never met. Like all these guys kind of have to go through that to an extent. And, I think we would argue that L is being a little unfairly treated, I think is what we would argue. But yeah, I think that's just part of who he is. Like he's a little bit of an up and down, like, some games he might be 2 for 8, some games he might be whatever. But I think his decision making, at least on offense, has been a lot better lately. And so I think that's, as long as he's taking care of the ball better, the way he has the last couple of weeks, the defensive deficiencies are going to be there. In college basketball, I feel like it's not as hard nowadays to overcome a bad individual defender. We've seen Arkansas do it plenty over the years. So I feel like it'll be fine. But, I'm a fan of Andrew Ellis. I think he's doing a great job. And I think L-Ellis is going to be a big time piece for this team down the stretch.
I concur. Honcho Razorback says, let's go. Is this team ceiling higher or lower than last year's?
So it depends on, okay, the way to clarify this is what do you consider last year's team's ceiling? Does that mean healthy and poppin' Nick Smith, healthy Anthony Black, healthy Trevin Brazil? Do we get to do all of that? Because if so, I have a hard time believing anyone has a higher ceiling than that team.
Yeah.
But in terms of like realistic ceilings, like, I don't know. What do you think, Curtis?
I would say maybe similar, honestly, because to me, I think the ceiling is higher in some areas because I think their backcourt is more well equipped to get you farther in the NCAA tournament. So yeah, do they have all the first round picks or whatever? No, they don't, but it's an older group, a veteran group. They've got more shooting. Arkansas struggled to score at times in the NCAA tournaments. Like I think they've addressed a lot of issues there. I think they're going to figure some things out defensively, but I do still, I get it. Like Chandler Austin's been really good, but I worry about that front court and what that's going to look like in the tournament. It's kind of been an area that has bit Arkansas the last couple of years. You never know what you're going to get on Mackay. Like Graham has not shown us what, we thought we were going to see. He's been injured and in and out. So I don't know. So I think that's the biggest question mark for me. I'd say it's similar. Like, would it surprise me if Arkansas rattled off some games and, you've got Battle and those guys really rolling and they make it to another Elite Eight? Like, no, it wouldn't. But kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the year, this might be the year where I really look at Arkansas. Let's say they're a 5 seed playing a 12 or whatever. And they might be a team that's as prone to getting picked off early as any that we've seen under Muss too. So,
by the way, what a greatly aging take it has been. Me saying that Arkansas might get clipped early. Well, I didn't intend for that to happen, but hey, Curtis, I have to share some absolutely breaking news with you. I just received a text message from a young man named Daniel West.
Oh, okay.
Bryce Stevens is in the portal, Curtis. What are we going to do?
Stevens is in the portal.
He's gone.
Was Bryce Stevens on the team this year?
He was. He played on offense in one of the games. It was like FIU. He might have played in the FIU game, it was the Auburn game. He played in the Auburn game on offense, but Bryce Stevens, we will never forget your time here at Arkansas. I think I speak for everyone in saying that it was the best time of our life, and we wish you well on your journey moving forward.
I will say this: that punt return against Missouri State is a moment that I'll never forget. So he
saved Arkansas from losing to Bobby Petrino at home.
Yeah, he did.
That's his legacy at Arkansas in my eyes.
We'll take that. Hopefully,
he did catch that touchdown from Malik Hornsby too. Do you remember that one against Mississippi State?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
like the best throw. Malik Hornsby, for some reason, decided to, for one play, become the best quarterback of all time and threw the best throw I've ever seen.
That's right.
Better than any throw I've ever seen KJ make right into Bryce Stevens' hands. I'm like, wow. And then it never happened again. But we'll always have that, though.
Yeah. Hopefully Grant's on that story since we're doing this show right now. We'll see. Honcho, again, question for both of you guys. What's y'all's favorite unis that Arkansas wears?
Easiest question to answer for me.
Okay.
The 94 throwbacks. I mean, they should wear them every game. And do they have a red version yet? I think they do, right?
Yeah, I think
Like
they do
recently.
now. Yeah.
Those need to be the primaries. Like, you know, and if you want to mix in your other ones, the one with the logo on the front, like whatever, or even the Jeff Long font at the front, if you want to mix in those, cool. The 94s, the throwback should be your primary home and away. They look perfect.
I love the anthracite. Moving on.
Yeah. You do. I forgot about this, dude.
I love it, man.
You like the anthracite.
People get so mad about it. I love it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. And when I was a kid, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, that was my dream. Michael Qualls hit a game winner in anthracite one time against Vanderbilt, I want to say.
I mean,
so I think they beat Florida in the anthracites a couple years ago too.
That's right. Yeah, they played Ole Miss in them, or maybe those were straight.
So football sucks in the anthracites. They stink in them. But basketball, I feel like, has been pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, I'm down with it. I know that's not going to be a popular take. Honcho also says, speaking of Makai, he needs to wake up. Looks like he's got cement shoes on half the dang time. Yeah, that help defense is.
I love Makai. I want to clarify. I love Makai.
Me too.
I love him. I love Mikal even. I love both of them, and I'm really glad that they've. But it's stunning how many times there will be a shot at the rim against Arkansas where like they just didn't even bother to contest it. I'm like, all you got to do is step over 1 foot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned the pick and pop against Oklahoma's ball screens. That's one area where it's like, you've got to be up there and you've got to address that. You know, you can't be hanging back, especially if you're hanging back and you're not going to get over, you know what I mean? Like, you got to at least be on the right side of the rim. But I don't know. I'm telling you, there's going to be a game, probably a couple, where Makai really steps up and helps Arkansas. I mean, I have zero doubt. I mean, he's done it so much, like, you don't want to count on him every night, but I do know that Makai's capable of more than what he's shown to this point so far in this season. But I don't know. I really,
trouble, bro. Just stay out of foul trouble. The Duke game.
Yeah, I mean, 2,011 seconds the other day, especially on the day when I had his over. That's brutal.
Yeah, man. And then he picked up a foul 14 seconds after checking in against Ferman the other day. Like that. I mean, if he stays out of foul trouble, he's going to play more, whether Chandler Lawson or whoever is playing well, because they need some rotation there.
Chandler Lawson doesn't want anybody to play, man. He's playing so well, man.
Yeah.
Credit to him.
And now he's scoring. I mean, come on.
Hitting threes, yeah.
Yeah, what are we doing? I like this from Chris. He says, he's talking about Memphis here. I wish they could play in the pyramid like back in the day, the damn Bass Pro Shops. Yeah, that's too bad, because that was a really cool place. It was such a unique, deal. I would have loved to seen that. I mean, hey, if they wanted to play it, FedEx Forum or whatever, that would be cool. If Memphis would be willing to come back and run it back in Bud Walton, as opposed to trying to play in that house.
And he's going to say, hey, y'all come to Memphis and play in FedEx. We'll go to Simmons Bank.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, come on, man. Again, everybody's interested in playing until dates start getting thrown out there.
The other day I was driving through Memphis. I say the other day, it was like 2 months ago. I was driving through Memphis with my girlfriend, Hillary, and she was not aware of the Pyramid Bass Pro Shops. I was so excited to drive through and just be like, there it is.
In all its glory.
It's now there's now a Mark Wahlberg restaurant in there, or at least I've heard. But I was telling her, I was like, yeah, they used to play basketball games in there. It was awesome.
You can spend the night in there. There's like a hotelish place in there.
Well, when we go see Arkansas play Memphis in the FedEx Forum, we'll stay there.
Stay there. Look at the gators and the fishes. I like it. All right. Just a couple more and we're out of here. Raphael Johnson says, who's stepping up if TB is out?
Smaller guys.
Yeah.
But Chandler Lawson. The answer is and always will be Chandler Lawson. But also, we're getting signs of – I've talked myself into it. I've been thinking about it a lot. We're getting signs of life from Makai this weekend.
He played really well in the game last year.
2 blocks. We're getting
I think from the size and rebounding, rim protection, all that. Yeah, I mean those guys can step up, and honestly, from the scoring and perimeter shooting standpoint, I look at Davenport. Honestly, like at some point my man's gonna go crazy. He hasn't done it yet for whatever reason, but we've seen it. Like we saw in the red-white game, like that dude at some point there's going to be the Davenport game where he goes 5 of 7 from 3 and Arkansas wins because of it. I'm down for that to happen on Saturday.
You know what's crazy is Davenport is actually playing great ball in every facet except shooting.
It's
like
not,
when you look at him out there, he's moving the ball, he's playing defense, he's filling his lane, like he's running, he's playing hard, he's blocking shots, like he's getting in passing lanes. He's just not knocking down threes, which is the only thing we thought he was going to do. We were okay with him not doing any of the other stuff, you know? So yeah, I mean, I agree. And, you know, weirdly enough, Muss actually really did mention Davenport. The first guy he mentioned when they were talking about shot blockers, he's like, you know, he's actually contested some shots well. Yeah, so they like what he's doing. It's just the threes haven't been there, but, you know, like we said, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming for sure. It's coming for sure. Okay, well, have we done it? I mean, are we through here?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Goodbye.
Anything cool to say?
No, I don't think anything cool to say. Well, we didn't get any suggestions on dinner tonight. I mean, what the heck?
I know, man. Yeah, we're just gonna have to figure it out. There's a lot of good options, though.
Kingsley's got a question about Bay real quick.
Oh yeah, throw it up there.
Throw it up there. Let's see where we at. I forgot I own that ability. Bay Fall, man. I'll tell you what about Bay. He's actually, you know, he's not playing right now, obviously. I like a lot of what I've been seeing out of Bay. Now, to be clear, still extremely super raw. I'm not saying he needs to be starting or anything, but in terms of like what we saw at practice, what we've seen in the exhibitions, like he actually seems a little bit more ahead of schedule in terms of like being a physical body that can play at this level. He definitely needs to add some weight, but you know, we talk about shot blocking and stuff like that. Like that's a dude who, if he figures it out and kind of puts it all together on the defensive end, he completely changes your defense and the way that teams approach you. And you know, I would love to see if they were able to unlock a version of him. You know, the 3-point shooting is interesting with him too. I want to see if he's ever going to end up being a legit shooter, because I think if he is, you can talk me into a lot with Bay Fall. Just off the shot blocking and 3-point shooting alone. And then if he can round out any other pieces of his offensive game, let's go for it. But, you know, we were watching him shoot the other day, kind of talking about it. And like, you watch him shoot a few and you're like, dude, Bay Fall, man, I'm telling you. Then you watch him shoot a few more. And all right. You see the road. It's like not quite consistent yet, but I think there's at least something to build on with that shot. And I think if he's a legitimate 3-point threat, doesn't have to be a sniper, but just someone who can step out there and knock down a three and block shots and impact shots to the level that we've seen him do it a little bit in practice here and there. I think there's a version of Bay that could be a very unique and interesting player for Arkansas that we really haven't seen them have before.
Hear me out. Okay. And I'm not comparing players. I'm comparing like,
I know where you're going and I'm agreeing with you. I know where you're going.
Roles, okay. Is Bay Fall the Ethan Henderson of this basketball team? I
thought you were going to go man over. I thought you were going.
No, because I don't think you start Bay and play him for 3 minutes and don't play him the rest of the game. No, but I think he could be the Ethan Henderson guy that doesn't play for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden you're in a little bit of foul trouble. And it's like, dang, man, we need some energy. Whoa. He plays 8 minutes and he gets 4 blocks and you're like, wow, that was great. And then you use him again in a week when you need him. Right.
Well, honestly, what a perfectly timed question. Cause I mean, if Makai goes in there and picks up 2 fouls in 19 seconds, which is always in play, if we were to set the over under 0.5 minutes for Bay Fall, do you think he gets in there
Saturday? Yeah, why not?
I mean, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world.
Dude, he got in against North Carolina and he was guarding Armando Bacot.
I think he's got a better chance of playing than Pinion, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I like Pinion too, but it's like, I just think like in terms of the competition, like obviously Bay doesn't have nearly as much competition for his playing spot than Joseph does, but it wouldn't stun me.
Yeah. I think I'm with you.
Oh, hold on, Curtis. We have one more really good question I want to acknowledge. I'm glad that Zando 4 decided to ask about a young man named Keon Minifield. Keon, if you're listening, come on the pod.
Yeah.
We want to get you in here. We've actually been talking about this. If anyone, leave your feedback if you want. We're trying to get Keon Minifield to just get a little update. We want to talk to him. We love this kid, and we think he's like, we see him behind scenes at all the games. He's not playing, obviously, but he's so engaged and he's there with the team. I would really love to just hear from him and hear what he has to say about, his development, what he thinks of the team and stuff like that. So we're one of these days you might see Keon Minifield's mug up here.
He is the ultimate hype man. Seems like he's great for chemistry. He's a dude that you want to talk to, and we're considering using his mixtape as the Hog Hoops Live theme.
It's a copyright issue here, but if we can get that, we'll be good.
Yeah. So it just like it's out there now. It's out there. So the ball is in your court, Keon Minifield, just so you know. All right.
And also, I think he's really bought into what he's having to do this year, which is sit out. I think he's like, I'm sure at first he was probably like, this sucks and this is stupid. But I do think he seems like he's, at least when we talked to him, he seemed like he's pretty into it. I'm into it.
For sure. We got to get out of here.
Let's go home.
But no, this has been good. Again, appreciate everybody as always. Really enjoyed this. We're going to be, Andrew and I both, in Tulsa at the BOK Center. Big one, Crimson and Cardinal Classic. We'll see how Arkansas does. And they got a week between games. So I think, we've talked about in the past, wanted to maybe extend this and do a couple shows per week. As we get closer to the holidays, these games are separated by a week. I think it's going to be a perfect time for us to do that. So be on the lookout for us to be back early sometime next week and then come back a little bit later to preview this thing in North Little Rock. It should be a lot of fun. But again, appreciate you guys as always. It's been Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis with HawgSports.com, and we will catch you guys next time.